Good afternoon. Welcome to the City of Suffolk Board of Zoning Appeals July 8th, 2025 meeting. Ms. Cobb, will you please call roll?
Shantae Hall. Richard Eslick.
Here.
Corey Carnegie.
Here.
Melissa Venable.
Present.
Fred Walker.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Terrific. We have a quorum. We have 4 of the 5 members here today. We have 5 items on our agenda this afternoon. Our first agenda item, I'm sorry? I was ready to jump in. I apologize. We need to go through the minutes. I can't even remember my words. Have you had an opportunity to review the minutes from our previous meeting?
I'll make a motion that we approve them as submitted.
Second.
We have an approved and a second. We'll just go with a verbal acceptance. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Now, we have 5 items today. The first item this afternoon is BZA 06-2025, address 4236 Rivercliff Crescent East, submitted by Gerald Mason. Ms. Cobb, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 06-2025. The applicant, Gerald Mason, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setbacks from 15 feet to 2.9 feet for the conversion of a shed to an accessory dwelling unit. The property is identified as tax map parcel 19G2*34, located at 4236 Rivercliff Crescent East, zoning classification, residential low density. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback from 15 feet to 2.9 feet for the conversion of a shed to an accessory dwelling unit. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We'll now have staff analysis and recommendation by William Mellon, zoning administrator.
Good afternoon, board members. For the record, William Mellon, zoning administrator. The applicant, Gerald Mason, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, Article 4, Section 31-407C, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards L, to reduce the minimum required side yard setback from 15 feet to 2.9 feet in order to convert an existing shed into an accessory dwelling unit. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 19G2*34, located at 4236 Rivercliff Crescent East, Suffolk, Virginia, Sleepy Hole voting borough, zoning classification RL, residential low density. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to the adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. As previously noted, the applicant is requesting a reduction to the required side yard setback from 15 feet to 2.9 feet to convert an existing shed to an accessory dwelling unit, an ADU. The 24 by 14 shed with covered porch was permitted and approved by the City of Suffolk in 2021 as storage space only and not reviewed for habitable space. The approved side yard setback for the shed is 5 feet. The survey submitted with the variance application indicates the shed is 2.9 feet from the side property line. Also, a 3 by 9 proposed addition is currently pending with a Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area CBPA exception application due to it being in the 100-foot resource protection area buffer, the RPA buffer. The shed was approved in 2021 with city GIS maps indicating that its location was outside the RPA, but a wetlands delineation prepared by an engineering firm for the ADU revealed that it was located within the buffer. The applicant has also applied for a conditional use permit, which is required for any detached accessory dwelling units in the RL, residential low density zoning district. Section 31-701 B13 of the UDO establishes the setbacks for ADUs as the same as the principal dwelling. The required side yard setback for this ADU is 15 feet. The shed was constructed as per Section 31701A of the UDO, which allows for reduced side and rear setbacks of 5 feet for non-dwelling accessory buildings. This proposed ADU is approximately 363 square feet, including the proposed 3x9 addition. The nearest adjacent dwelling at 4232 Rivercliff Crescent is approximately 65 feet from the proposed shed and proposed ADU. Building plans will be required and reviewed by the plan reviewer to ensure all fire rating requirements are met in accordance with the International Building Code. Section 31-701 of the UDO does limit the ADU from being offered for rental purposes. The applicant stated that the hardship is due to the building being previously approved by the city of Suffolk as a shed. He further explains the property is unique in that it's steeply sloped in the rear and somewhat sloped on the other side of the property. Somewhat sloped on the other side of the principal structure. An ADU is a more intensive use than a storage building. So the 15-foot setback required for ADUs is more appropriate than the existing 2.9-foot side for a storage shed. Section 15.2-2309 of the Code of Virginia provides that a variance shall be granted if the evidence shows that the strict application of the terms of the ordinance would unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property, and further requires that any hardship not be created by the applicant for the variance. With these criteria in mind, staff can't support this application and therefore recommends denial. I'll stand by for any questions, and I see you're already on the site plan. Yep. Okay, so we'll stand by.
We will now open our public hearings. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
I am Gerald Mason. My wife Narissa and I reside at the principal address, 4236 Rivercliff Crescent. We had built the shed about 2 years ago, a little more than that maybe, and we've done so because we had a need for storage as we just moved in. We wanted to accommodate storage for the property. We had known even at the time that if we were to put a structure on the property, we'd want it to be attractive, and ultimately we want to be able to get the best reasonable use out of that structure. So we built it pretty much to the standards of a dwelling unit. I have pictures of it if anybody would like to see the pictures that I have of the actual structure. I can hand them over if necessary. But we had built it to be an attractive accent to the property, and we do have regular family visitors, and we wanted to be able to use it at a point. It wasn't planned initially per se, but we had ultimately felt that, yeah, it would be nice to have it, make it into a dwelling unit, and allow family members to stay there. We did not, at the time of original building, expect that we would ultimately use it for that purpose. We saw it to be installed and to ultimately used for its best purpose. Just as the home we live in, we want it to be the best home that we could have, and so we've improved it to the point that it is actually something we're comfortable with. The same intent was for the shed when it was built. Granted, when the process began, I did not want to get a survey done. I just didn't think it was necessary. I didn't have the money to invest in it. So we didn't do a survey, so we ultimately led to us having it placed it too far into the buffer area, even for a shed. So to that, obviously, we're in error. I asked for the waiver. We will survive without it, of course, but we think it was a beautiful place for families, visiting family to stay, meaning one occupant at a time. And I'd like to use it for that purpose. And are there any questions?
So we'll go ahead and call you up if we have additional questions. Right now, we have the public hearing, so we'll
Okay.
call up any additional speakers and then bring you back for questions.
All right, thank you.
Thank
I
you,
didn't know
sir.
if it was my turn.
Yep, thank you so much. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of the application? Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close the public hearing?
I asked that, all things considered, that I would be approved to allow it to stay where it is and to convert it. In the event that it is not deemed feasible in respect to the breach of ordinance, then I'm prepared to make accommodations to do that to the best of my ability. As much as I would not want to do so, if I had to move it, I would do that. If I were to be in a position where I have no choice but to move it, I ask that we would certainly, upon doing so, be outside of the 5-foot, but it may still encroach on the 15-foot buffer zone by a few feet. I'm looking at, it would be practical to move it as much as 7 foot from where it now sits in the direction of the primary structure, which in that case would still encroach a few feet, but it certainly would come very close to meeting what would otherwise have been required for zoning purposes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. That'll conclude our public hearing. Do we have questions, comments? No questions? Is the structure currently complete? Because the pictures that we have, it looks like the structure is complete.
It was built, as I said, to actually look and accent the home. So it's complete in the sense that the exterior, the foundation, and everything that's visible from the outside is complete. It's not complete inside. There's no paneling,
The interior's not
no
complete.
interior complete, no plumbing, no electrical. Nothing's been done inside of it beyond what was necessary in order to acquire the permit for the purposes of storage. But it is structurally outside complete, notwithstanding the 3-foot nook that I would install in place of the garage door to allow for a little bit extra room for a bed to sit in that part of the dwelling.
Gotcha. What is the neighbor that's 2.9 feet away? Yeah.
Her name is Betty Buck. When it was originally installed, Betty and myself and my wife and her family were relatively on very good, and still are to this day, notwithstanding that she's going through some things herself. But nonetheless, before building the structure, I spoke to her, let her know what I was planning to do. I then laid out stakes and rope to outline where it would go. I again invited her, and she did look at it. Built the platform, the base of it, showed her that, and all along throughout the process, she had seen what I was doing, and she was happy and impressed with it. Albeit at the same time, I was, because she was a friend, she's an older lady, and she's life's changing for her.
Got it.
But nonetheless, throughout the entire process, herself and her family were aware of what I was doing. They were pleased with it, and because she was a friend, we were friends. My wife would walk with her every day or two, but she was very much accommodating to it and welcoming of it when it was done.
Thank you.
Her family, her daughters and such were fully aware of it as well, and they knew what was going on, and they were very pleased with our relationship with her and the way things were going, even with the building of this structure.
Very good. Did you?
I have a question before you sit down. What is the 3x9 proposed addition? What is that?
again, I have a picture of the structure, if that's of any value to you at this time. But the addition would have been to accommodate to better accommodate a bed. It's where the garage door was.
Yeah, we have a picture of
You
it.
do have the picture. Yeah, it's where the garage door was. Yeah, I see you do. It will extend out from where the garage door is in compliance with building code. And it will be a nook so that a bed will can be better accommodated in that area of the structure. So, it's easier to get around and more comfortable inside the structure.
I have another question. What issue are you having with it now being determined that it's in the buffer? in the
That seems to
RPA?
be going very well, actually. What we intend to do, it is actually just fully, in its full, within that buffer zone on the 50 feet closer to the road. But having spoken and gone through the process, submitted my request for permit for that purpose and exception, I was told what must be done in order to accommodate it. Such a exception, which included the planting of vegetation, additional planting of vegetation. All of that's been submitted, and it seems like that's well accepted by the city and the people that are involved in that process. And I expect that if in the event that it is approved through this hearing, that they will approve it as well. When I received the property, by the way, and I know that the environment is important to me as is to anybody else, the protection of the waterway is very important as well. When I purchased the home, there were two 24-foot cabin cruisers sitting, on the land or in the waterway in front of my house, and you could probably see it from previous topography online. But nonetheless, I removed those two boats and found to be both containing engines, 8-cylinder engines with oils and other pollutants, as well as over 100 gallons of gasoline. So, I realize I'm encroaching on the wetland, but we appreciate the wetland. We're going to protect it.
I have another question. In hindsight, do you now see the value of having a survey done?
Absolutely.
Well,
And, at the time, there was so much expense in purchasing the property, but nonetheless, we could have made the difference and have done the survey in the first place. I absolutely, under those circumstances, more than any, and, in retrospect, and even not knowing what could occur, it makes good sense to get a survey done, especially, if I plan to do such work on the property. So I certainly wish they had done that in the first place. I worked with a good company out of Portsmouth to do the survey, and they were very good people, good to work with, professional. And although it did not turn out in my favor, so to speak, I think that it was certainly worthwhile. I wish I had done it in the first place, and I hadn't.
You're welcome to have a seat. I do see anywhere this gentleman moves this shed to be in a more appropriate location, you'll be deeper into the RPA. So I do see that as a concern for the property. Currently, they're within the 100-foot buffer, 100-foot RPA. Anything further back, which I think you'd have to go back and inward to the property, you'd be approaching or into the 50-foot RPA buffer, which then you have an environmental condition issue or a bigger condition. So I do foresee, I do feel like we can make an action based on hardship here. It's a set of unfortunate circumstances, but it was an approved structure in 2022. The conversion, I think, still has to go through a conditional use permit, so that's not the use is not our issue, it's the setback that is our issue. With that said, do we have a motion to move this forward, or?
Yeah, I want to make a motion for approval based on the fact that the applicant has a number of other hoops that he needs to jump through. And if he can do all of that, then it's not all on us. So I will make a motion that we approve the application.
I'll second that.
We have motion for approval by Mr. Eslick and a second by Mr. Walker for approval of the application. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Ms. Cobb, will you please call for a vote?
Shante Hall, Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Corey Carnegie,
Yes.
Melissa Venable,
Yes.
Fred Walker.
Yes.
The motion carries 4-0.
And I will just reiterate that that is based on the hardship of the restrictions due to the RPA area on site. Thank you, sir. We wish you well. Our second application this afternoon is BZA 09-2025, address 112 South 10th Street, BC Branch Enterprises, Inc., on behalf of Paul Peterson. Ms. Cobb, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 09-2025. The applicant, BC Branch Enterprises Incorporated, on behalf of the property owner, Paul Peterson, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10 feet for the construction of a single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map parcel 35F*RN*A, located at 112 South 10th Street, zoning classification residential medium density. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10 feet for the construction of a single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We'll now have staff analysis and recommendation by Melvion Knight, Assistant Zoning Administrator.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, city staff, and guests. My name is Melvion Knight, and I'm the Assistant Zoning Administrator for the City of Suffolk. The application that I will be bringing before the board is BZA 09-2025. The applicant, BC Branch Enterprises Incorporated, on the behalf of the property owner, Paul Peterson, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31-407, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards, parentheses J, to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10 feet for the construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35F*RN*A, located on 112 South 10th Street, Suffolk, Virginia, Wellerville voting borough, zoning classification RM residential medium. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. The applicant states that the RM zoning district setback will not allow development of a single-family dwelling on the corner lot of 112 South 10th Street and Feeney Avenue. The dimensional requirements for newly platted lots in the residential medium zoning district requires a total land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum frontage of 60 feet and a minimum lot width of 80 feet when measured from the front setback line. The corner lot calculates to 3,600 square feet in land area. The proposed structure does not meet the required side yard setback adjacent to the street as shown on the plat. According to the exhibit, the property will not support a 20-foot wide single-family dwelling without the approval of this request. Under Section 31-801, parentheses E, parentheses 1, parentheses A, parentheses 3, of the Unified Development Ordinance, it allows for the administrator to grant up to a 30% reduction on the front, side, and rear setbacks on substandard lots. Unfortunately, the reduction request for this property exceeds the 30% allowance granted under administrative variance request. The RM zoning district will not support the construction of a single-family dwelling on a substandard lot. Therefore, staff recommends approval of this request. As shown on the illustration here, is showing the property that is adjacent to South 10th Street and Feeney Street. The property owner has requested to reduce the side yard adjacent to Feeney Street, was considered a secondary front, from the 25 to a 10-foot to support the 20-foot wide structure. The property also meets the parking requirements and the impervious surface calculations for the district. The applicants also submitted a model set of drawings, which has appeared in the city staff review on previous lots, which is just showing an illustration from the front and side elevations for the property. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions the board may have. Thank
I do
you.
have a question. I want to make sure that the parking pad that's shown on the property, which I guess would allow for 2 tandem parking spaces, one behind the other, that is viable for City of Suffolk? We can do that?
Yes, you can stack, as long as it meets the minimum width requirements. Our ordinance states that a parking drive aisle can be 12 in width, but a standard size parking space is 9 by 18. So as long as they can meet that requirement with at least a length of 36, they should be able to accommodate 2 parking spaces.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions for Ms. Knight before she sits down? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
We'll now open our public hearing as stated before, and I will just state it one more time for the next 4 applications. Public hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Are doing well. Brennan Branch. I live here in Suffolk, 701 Jones Street. Here for Mr. Peterson. He's looking to get this house built on his property here in Suffolk.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Seeing none, Mr. Branch, is there anything you'd like to add? That'll close this public hearing. Do we have a discussion, questions, or a motion?
Motion for approval.
We have a motion for approval
I'll second that.
and a second by Mr. Walker. Discussion of the motion. Seeing none, Ms. Cobb, will you please call for a vote?
Shantae Hall, Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Corey Cornegay,
Yes.
Melissa Venable,
Yes.
Fred Walker.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Terrific. Congratulations, sir. Our third item this afternoon is BZA 10-2025, Address 3737 Nansman Parkway, submitted by Jesse J. Johnson Jr. on behalf of Nansman Properties LLC. Ms. Cobb, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 10-2025. The applicant, Jesse J. Johnson, on behalf of the property owner, Nansman Properties LLC, is requesting a variance to reduce the Special Corridor Overlay District required setbacks from 30 feet to 15 feet in the front and from 20 feet to 15 feet in the rear for the expansion of an existing manufacturing processing use with an outdoor operations and storage. The property is identified as tax map parcels 13C star R48, 49, 50, 51, 53, 53A, and 19C star R62 star R56 star R54, located at 3737 Nansman Parkway, zoning classification M2 heavy industrial. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the Special Corridor Overlay District required setbacks from 30 feet to 15 feet in the front and 20 feet to 15 feet in the rear for the expansion of a manufacturing use with outdoor operations and storage. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We'll now have staff analysis and recommendation by William Millen, zoning administrator.
Good afternoon. William Mullen for the record, zoning administrator. As noted, the applicant, Jesse J. Johnson, Esquire, on behalf of the property owner, Nansman Properties LLC, is requesting a variance of Section 31-412C of the Unified Development Ordinance to reduce the Special Corridor Overlay District, the SCOD required setbacks, from 30 feet to 15 feet in the front and from 20 feet to 15 feet in the rear for the expansion of an existing manufacturing processing use with outdoor operations and storage, specifically for the best management practice BMP detention pond. The property is identified as tax map parcels 19C star R48 star R49 star R51 star R 53, star R star 53A, and 19C star R 62, star 56, star 54, located at 3737 Nesmond Parkway, Cypress Voting Bureau, zoning classification M2, heavy industrial. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. Right now, you see on the display, you see the zoning and land use map of the surrounding properties. You got RLM across the street and to the south, and then you have RE to the west and M2 to the north. Here's our sign posted. This shows the minor subdivision the property is going through to vacate the interior property lines. I figured it would be helpful to see that at first. All those lines with dotted are scheduled to be removed. Here we have the layout of the BMP. It's highlighted in yellow. And you also see the SCOD required landscaping streetscape. The applicant, Jesse J. Johnson, Esquire, on behalf of the owner, Nasman Properties LLC, is requesting a variance to reduce the special corridor overlay district required setbacks from 30 feet to 15 feet for the front along Nasman Parkway, and from 20 feet to 15 feet rear for the expansion of the manufacturing processing use with outdoor operations and storage. The property is identified as tax maps 19C, star R48, star R49, star R51, star R53, star R star 53A, and 19C star R62, star 56, star 54, located at 3737 Nasman Parkway, zone of classification M2 heavy industrial. In January 2025, the property owners, Nasman Properties LLC, received a rezoning approval and conditional use permit to expand its manufacturing processing use with outdoor operations and storage to adjacent property owners, to adjacent properties, rezoning parcels from RLM to M2 heavy industrial. The conditional use permit approval required the applicants to dedicate 25 feet of right-of-way to the city along Nasman Parkway for future road projects. Nasman Parkway is located within the Special Corridor Overlay District per Section 31-412 of the UDO. Section 31-412 of the UDO requires that yards adjacent to any street designated as Special Corridor Overlay District have a continuous 15-foot deep streetscape and screening planting strip, which is a mixture of trees and street screening plants as outlined in Section 31-603 of the UDO. The conditional use permit granted also requires this 15-foot streetscape buffer as a condition. This variance request does not change or alter the required buffer in any way. The applicant is seeking relief from the board to reduce the required front yard setback from 30 feet to 15 feet due to the 25-foot right-of-way dedication along the front of the parcel along Nasman Parkway. This request, along with the request for the reduction of 5 feet from 20 feet to 15 feet along the rear setback, is for the installation of a detention pond, BMP as required from the project expansion to handle the additional development per Public Works regulations. Along the rear, the required 10-foot landscape buffer will be installed between the BMP and the rear property line. It is important to note that this rear reduction could be done administratively without seeking relief from the board, but to make the application more complete, the applicant included this request as part of the application. As noted previously, the property is in process of a minor subdivision plan to vacate the internal property lines with the planning department. With the required 25-foot right-of-way dedication required for this property and the layout of the BMP required to offset runoff, staff recommends approval of this variance request as proposed. I'll stand by for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mullins. Does anybody have questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll now open our public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
My name is Jesse Johnson. I'm the applicant, and I represent Nansman Properties LLC.
Johnson, would you please state your address?
I certainly will. 3508 Robbs Drive, Suffolk, Virginia, 23434. I think the gentleman has well stated our position here. We have tried to anticipate some future situations that this company may be facing. As some of you know already, Nansman Precast Concrete has its plant there. And that company is what I refer to as a legacy business in the city of Suffolk. It was there before we had a city of Suffolk, and it's been in continuous operation by the McConnell family ever since its inception. And they have been very, very good neighbors to the people who live up and down Nansman Parkway. In fact, one of the planning commissioners who heard the original applications with regard to the rezoning and use permits said they're great neighbors, they don't make any noise. They're wonderful people. So we're trying to do this in keeping with the spirit of things that we've tried to foster in that neighborhood. We did agree with the city to go ahead and do the 25-foot dedication along Nansman Parkway. There's no question that at some point in time, hopefully sooner than later, based on the traffic count on Nansman Parkway, that 25 feet will be able to be utilized, and we'll get more pavement out there to handle traffic. I know I travel that way back and forth to home, and sometimes it can be quite taxing out there. So rather than say, no, we're not going to do it, we're going to move forward the way it is, knowing that the city would need it at some point in time, we said, fine, it'll be easier and better for everybody if we don't have to tear up what we have to construct and then have that to do all over again. So that was a thought. That crunched things a little bit when it came to designing the drainage system. So that's the primary reason for seeking the variance on the front. As the gentleman alluded to earlier, the rear could be done administratively, but we were advised to go ahead and include it in this application. It just, again, made good sense to do it that way. The property, and the other part of this, we are abandoning property lines, so we'll have one piece of property instead of several lots. It makes sense because what we potentially had was a piece of property with an industrial use that was grandfathered. That may put us in a situation in the future of having to be limited based on the grandfathering situation. So we wanted to get the zoning 100% from east to west, north to south, the same. We wanted to vacate the property lines, and we did consolidate ownership in Nansman Properties LLC, which is basically the landlord for the precast operation. They're the same owners, but for various reasons, that seems to work well. We think we've designed a good project. The property that was rezoned is going to contain an outside storage area. We expect and desire to do all the necessary shielding to make everything work. We just, with the 25 feet that we gave up, we just needed a little bit more. And as I've already said, the rear, we could do administratively, but we were advised to include it. So we'd ask for your approval in moving this forward. I have Mr. McConnell, Doug McConnell, who's the founder of the company, here with us today. And I also have Chris Parrish, our engineer, if you would like to ask any technical questions, because I'm not necessarily very technically oriented. He could answer those things. And we would appreciate your concern on this, and we'd appreciate an affirmative vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of the application? Is there anyone to speak in opposition? Seeing none, is there anything any of you would like to add? Nope. Okay, that closes this public hearing. Do you have any questions, comments, or a motion?
Motion for approval. Second.
We have a motion for approval and a second. I'd like to add that I drive past this site often. It's always clean and neat, and it is a great, I think it's a great employee and a great business of the city of Suffolk. I'm thrilled to see them expanding, and I'm thrilled to see the dedication on Ansman Parkway, with grand hopes that sooner than later we'll see another lane out there for multiple reasons. I want to reiterate that we have a motion for approval and a second that's based on a hardship of the taking of the property and the wetland delineation and the SCOD setbacks that are set for this property along Nansman Parkway. So with that, do we have any discussion of the motion? Ms. Cobb, would you please call for a vote?
Shante Hall, Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Corey Carnegie,
Yes.
Melissa Venable,
Yes.
Fred Walker.
Yes.
The motion carries 4-0.
Congratulations. I think, are we on our fourth item this afternoon? BZA 11-2025, 110 Warren Street, submitted by Jameson and Tracy Williams. Ms. Cobb, will you please would you please read the caption?
For the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 11-2025. The applicants Jameson and Tracy Williams are requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 30 feet to 8.4 feet for the replacement of a 6-foot privacy fence. The property is identified as tax map parcel 44B*3, located at 110 Warren Street, zoning classification residential low medium density. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 30 feet to 8.4 feet for the replacement of a 6-foot privacy fence. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff analysis and recommendation by Melvia Knight, Assistant Zoning Administrator.
The application before the board today is BZA 11-2025. The applicants, Jameson and Tracy Williams, are requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31-407, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards, parentheses J, to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 30 feet to 8.4 feet for the replacement of a 6-foot high closed fence. The property is identified as tax map 44B*3, located on 110 Warren Street, Suffolk, Virginia, Wellerville voting borough, zoning classification RLM, residential low medium. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. On April 18th, the Planning and Community Development received an after-the-fact request for the installation of a 6-foot and 4-foot fence closed on a corner lot addressed as 110 Warren Street. A comment letter was drafted to the property owners to revise the proposed location of the fence to meet the RLM setbacks established by the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31-407, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards, parentheses J. The applicant opted to submit an application to the Board of Zoning Appeals to review the hardships created by the verbiage of the ordinance as it related to the RLM standards. The applicant states that the RLM standards will not allow the corner lot of Warren and Lynch to erect the after-the-fact fence as shown on the survey. According to the exhibits, a fence flush with the single-family residence would meet the 30-foot front yard setback abutting Lynch Street when measured from the property pin. According to the ordinance, Section 31-701 of the Unified Development Ordinance, parentheses 10A, a fence or wall in a single-family residence district, provided that a fence or wall not more than 6 feet in height may be located in any required yard or rear yard, any required side yard or rear yard, or other than a required yard adjacent to a street. A fence or wall not more than 6 feet in height may be located in any planting, screen / no access easement adjacent to a street serving as a double frontage and or reverse frontage lot, except as allowed above the highlighted area. No fence or wall which creates a solid screen may exceed 2 1/2 feet in height in any required yard adjacent to a street, except that fences having a uniform open area of 50% or more may be erected to a maximum height of 4 feet in such required yards. The height shall be measured from the average ground level adjacent to the fence or wall. No fence or wall shall encroach the visibility triangle. The city has reviewed the alternatives to remedy the encroachment of the secondary front yard. However, the 8.4-foot measurement of the after-the-fact fence exceeds the criteria of the administrative variance per section 31-801, parentheses E, parentheses 1, parentheses A, parentheses 3 of the Unified Development Ordinance. Furthermore, the survey displays that the fence can meet the requirements of section 31-701 of the Unified Development Ordinance, parentheses 10A. Therefore, staff recommends denial of the request. Here, the applicant has provided us illustrations of the fence as it stands on the property from Lynch Street, and then this is a close-up shot of the fence as it stands along Lynch Street. Just going back to the illustration, here, this is the diagram that's showing the property along Warren Street and Lynch Street. The area that's highlighted in yellow shows the area where the 30-foot front yard setback is established for the RM zoning district. The image that's shown in the brighter yellow is the actual fence that's been erected inside of that area. If the property owner wished to have a 100% privacy fence in that area, they would have to adjust the location to meet the setback of the home to meet the 30-foot requirement. If the fence were to stay in the location, the city would be able to permit a 4-foot max height with 50% open, which would be a wrought iron fence, a picketed fence, or a chain link fence in this area that provided visibility on the corner lot. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available for any questions, and I think the applicants.
Ms. Knight, I just wanted to, this house, the 2-story house that's in this picture, that is the adjacent property or the
Yes,
the
that is
property
the
that sits
adjacent
behind the
property.
house?
Yes.
And their white fence meets the setback requirement,
Yes.
but okay.
Yes, that fence, because the way they have theirs laid out, they have the accessory structure and the fence set back 30 feet from the property line that's adjacent to Lynch Street. Just keeping in mind that there is a built-in 10-foot right-of-way there. And so the property line would not start from the street. It would actually start from the property line pin established for the individual site.
I had one other question. I guess this fence was erected without a permit. Is that right?
Well, when doing research, there was a fence permit that was applied for back in 2023, which was canceled, where the previous administrator made comments regarding the fence and the location being established in the proposed area. That fence permit was canceled as of August 15, 2023. I did print out the actual email from the cancellation. And so with that permit being canceled, and it was noted as of 10/10/23 that it was canceled and closed, it did address the location of the proposed 6-foot fence on the corner lot at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Good afternoon. I'm Jamison Williams. I live at 110 Warren Street with my wife, Tracy. We bought the house in 2021. I have pictures that were listed online with the fence in that location. That was one of the main reasons we bought the property. We're not really able to have kids, and we have several dogs that this yard was perfect for them. And then in 2023, it started to fall apart. We did submit a permit through the company that we were using, and it got canceled. And due to the condition of the fence, we decided to move forward. And then it kind of, I work in the Navy, so my job kind of took priority. I was gone for a long time. The other white fence that you see there was built more recently. That entire lot was torn down and rebuilt, I think, in the last year or two. So we had already had that fence erected. Built in the same spot that it was already in, with the exception on the other side of my other neighbor on Warren Street. We moved our fence back into our property line to accommodate them because the previous owner had built the fence on their property.
You do have photos of the original fence in 2021? Melvion will be kind enough to be, I was going to say, to be Vanna for us. Thank you, Melvion. Because we're not, oh, it was even further. Oh. If it helps you all, Mr. Carnegie, he's so technologically advanced, he was able to pull up a
I have
picture
them.
of the
We
old
got 'em.
fence from, okay, perfect.
Sorry,
Here's another one.
it's the same.
Pretty. That snow in Hampton Roads, look at that.
Yes, ma'am, we had 12 inches.
I'm sorry, if you want to allow us to look at these, we'll go ahead and call and see if there's anyone here. Is anyone else to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? Is there anything else you'd like to add? Okay, that'll close our public hearing. I'm going to pass these along, if you would just bear with us for a second. It's a beautiful home. Do we have any questions or comments as we look at these photographs? I do see the hardship and the confusion if there was a fence that sat in that location when you purchased the home. It does get to be a little bit confusing that this wasn't something that we caught. previously or we brought to anybody's attention. I am thrilled that the folks behind you don't find opposition. Otherwise, I think we would have gotten a note or a letter from them. You're welcome to come up, please. And just state your name and address for us.
My name is Tracy Williams. I live at 110 Warren Street. We did speak to all of our neighbors beforehand. We spoke with Mr. Banks. He's the one that lives behind us.
Okay.
We introduced ourselves when he first started buying the lot property there. We also spoke with Art and Wendy, who live across from us in our garage area. And then the people who live across from Mr. Banks is Billy and them, and we spoke to them as well, and nobody had any complaints.
Okay. Thank you for adding that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Do we have, we'll return these photos to you through Melvion. Do we have any other discussion, motion, questions?
This one right here is like kind of different from our other.
I agree with you.
This is 100% different, so I'm gonna go with a motion for approval on this one right
Yeah,
here.
I agree with you. I typically am not a big fan of these privacy fences, but in this case, I think there was quite a bit of confusion. And I can see where you would want to replace the dilapidated fence.
I'll second that a motion for approval.
So we have an approval, a motion, I'm sorry, for approval from Mr. Carnegie and a second by Mr. Walker. Do we have any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, Ms. Cobb, would you please call?
Shante Hall, Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Corey Carnegie,
Yes.
Melissa Venable,
Yes.
Fred Walker.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Congratulations, folks. Thank you for your service, sir. And our last item this afternoon, BZA 12-2025, 316 Goodman Street, submitted by Tier 1 Construction. Ms. Cobb, would you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 12-2025. The applicant, Tier 1 Construction, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setbacks from 10 feet to 5 feet and to increase the maximum impervious surface ratio from 40% to 41% for construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map parcel 35E, parentheses E, parentheses W 190, located at 316 Goodman Street, zoning classification residential medium density. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setbacks from 10 feet to 5 feet and to increase the maximum impervious ratio from 40% to 41% for the construction of a new single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We'll now have staff analysis and recommendation by Lisa Marshall, zoning official.
Good afternoon, board members.
Good afternoon.
I will be presenting 316 Goodman Street, application BZA 12-2025. The applicant, Tier 1 Construction, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31407C, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards L and E, to reduce the required side yard setbacks from 10 feet to 5 feet and to increase the impervious surface ratio from 40% to 41% to construct a single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map in parcel 35E, parentheses E, W190, located at 316 Goodman Street, Suffolk, Virginia, Whaleyville Voting Borough, zoning classification RM, residential medium. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and the notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. In accordance with Section 31-309C2 of the UDO, a variance may be granted by the board only if the applicant establishes compliance with the hardship criteria established in Section 15.2-2309 of the Code of Virginia. An excerpt from the state code which outlines the established criteria is attached at the end of this report. This applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setbacks from 10 feet to 5 feet and to increase the impervious surface ratio from 40% to 41% to construct a new single-family dwelling. The dimensional requirements for newly platted lots in the RM zoning district requires lots to have a total land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum street frontage of 60 feet and a lot width of 80 foot measured at the front setback line. This lot is approximately 4,800 square feet in land area, making the lot legally non-conforming. The width of any newly constructed home must be a minimum of 20 feet wide. Due to the inability to construct a 20-foot wide home on the lot and meet the required setbacks, staff recommends approval of this request. And I am available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Ms. Marshall? Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Good afternoon. My name is Angel Cornegay. My address is 6304 Orkney Court, Suffolk, Virginia, 23435. I'm here on behalf of Tier 1 Construction LLC, the company that has this property.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add or tell us about?
This property will be a new construction built on the street. We are asking for 10 to 5 setbacks on the side. And that's it.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Mrs. Peggy Pruden Boone. I'm opposing the side yard setback variance
Ms. Boone, would
request.
you give us your address as well?
Yes, my address is 211 Summerfield Court, Suffolk, Virginia, 23434.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Today I stand before you, a member of the Planning Commission, as a landowner whose property directly adjoins the lots under consideration, specifically Lot 35E West 184, 185, 186, and 187. I, Peggy Pruden Boone, formally oppose the request reduction in side yard setback at the proposed development site. The degradation of property value, the current zoning setback requirement creates uniform spacing that enhance curve appeal and ensure prospective values of generous lot size and privacy. Approving a reduced size setback would disrupt this uninformative, making the area appear cramped and less desirable, desiring less appraisal and market value in surrounding property, including my own. The erosion of the neighborhood character and consistency. As a homeowner within our community, particularly on Goodman Street and adjacent streets, were built with consistent side yard margin that define neighborhood characteristics. A variance would lower the design standard, setting a precedent for future encroachment. This gradual erosion of zoning standard threatens the integrity and cohesiveness of the entire subdivision. The loss of privacy, light, and airflow. A close building structure would shadow my property, reduce natural daylight, and diminish airflow. Such enrollment often lead to disrupt of maintaining access to cause reduced liability. Future legacy appeal is commonly harmed when adjacent building feels imposed or obstructed. The adverse effects of this request would because for the spacing of maintaining stormwater management and utility access. A reduced setback can create damage, drainage issues, and complicate upkeep, adding long-term expensive and operational difficulties for homeowners. As a homeowner, I'm hoping and that the request would be denied. To grant the variance would undermine the policy framework and weaken the city-owned regulatory guidance. In light of these concerns, I respectfully urge the Planning Commission to deny the side yard setback variance request for 316 Goodman Street, Tier 1 constructions, upholding the current zoning regulatory protection, the character, value, quality of life within the Suffolk neighborhood. Thank you for your attention to this consideration.
Ms. Boone, is there anyone else here to speak in opposition of this request? How are you?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stacy Boone. I live at the address of 211 Summerfield Court, Suffolk, Virginia, a future homeowner in the Hollywood-Jericho area. And I am a member of the Hollywood-Jericho Civic League, in which we are the oldest civic league in the city of Suffolk. As a member of the Hollywood-Jericho Civic League, we are committed to fostering thoughtful growth and sustainable development that enhances the quality of life in our community. We welcome new construction and improvements that align with the character and long-term vision of our neighborhood. However, we respectfully oppose and request the denial of the variance request to reduce the side lot setback from 10 feet to 5 feet for the property of 316 Goodman Street. You as the board are faced with a daunting task of ensuring that the zoning regulations that are in place continue to maintain consistent spacing between homes, ensure adequate green space, and preserve neighborhood aesthetics, as well as protecting property values. Allowing a reduction in the side lot setback would set a concerning precedent and could result in overbuilt lots, reduced privacy, and a negative visual impact on the streetscape. We are particularly concerned that such a variance could diminish the overall appeal and value of the homes in Hollywood-Jericho neighborhood, an often overlooked neighborhood. This community has worked hard to improve and grow in a thoughtful and balanced way. We urge the Board of Zoning Appeals to consider the long-term implications of this variance and to support development that respects existing zoning standards and community character. And again, we're asking that you deny the request for a variance to reduce the side lot back from 10 feet to 5 feet for 316 Goodman. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition?
My name is Kim Ingram. My address is 818 Raleigh Drive. However, the lot that was on there, 192, lot 192, that's the corner lot. That is my family's lot, is their property. And I'm here to speak about the privacy and just them building the homes and reducing, because like, I do have children, I do have grandchildren, and we would like to have space for them to run and also our pets. And the way they're building the houses now is almost like they're on top of one another. And I just would like, we tore down a structure so that we could rebuild and have something nice and something spacious. So I'm just praying and asking that you guys would oppose, so that way we can continue to have the space that we need to improve our living standards and quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition of this request? And is there anything else you would like to add, ma'am, in?
Property on Goodman Street, my builder, Tier 1, we actually owned all those lots over there. The 2 or 3 lots right beside each other. We own all of that. So I can't see us building this property. To me, it will build up the street because there are no really new houses on that street. The street that's across from that, Brick Street, has about 5 or 6 new homes. New families has moved in. It hasn't created a problem with the green space. If you check the survey, we also have the appropriate green space that should be included in the survey.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
That closes this public hearing. For the folks that spoke in opposition, I'm a little confused because there are not adjacent homes to this particular property. Looking at the aerial map that's recent that we have here, the lots that are both to the north and south of this property are vacant lots. This property is kind of nice. It's a little bit larger than a lot of the properties that we see in width, which allows this house to be a wider home, and it allows the house to have a garage, which we often don't get to see with these infill lots. So in ways, this is an application that I typically would like to support because it's something exceptional or different than what we typically see come in front of us. I also, in my run here for I think 10+ years now, we often approve infill lots with 5-foot yard setbacks because we like to see these vacant properties or dilapidated properties have new life and have new homes sit upon them. I don't like anything less than 5 feet. I think that's a difficulty for me, but I don't want to speak for the board. But in this case, I don't see adjacent properties that this would harm or cause a problem to, and I do like the exceptional elevations that I see here with a garage. I think that would be very welcoming and something that this area, a different type of home that this area could use. With that said, I will be quiet and turn to the board and ask if there's any questions or comments. Prior to me doing that, though, I will note that Mr. Carnegie is going to excuse himself for voting on this as he has a conflict of interest. So we will only have 3 votes today, which does allow us to have a quorum, but it would just be Mr. Eslick, Mr. Walker, and myself. So Mr. Carnegie will not be commenting or voting on this application. Mr. Walker, do you have anything, or Mr. Eslick?
Yeah, I'd like to address the people that were in opposition. We're talking about precedent, and the precedent has been with this board that we have approved applications like this for the very purpose of improving the neighborhood and putting quality structures there that actually improve the neighborhood, increase values, and based on that, I'm going to vote in favor, but I'll wait and see if anybody else has anything else to say before I make a motion.
Okay.
So based on no other response, I'll make a motion that we approve the application.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion for approval and a second of the motion based on the hardship of lot narrowness, and this being an infill lot, so we have a reduction from 10 feet to 5 feet to be able to build an acceptable structure on an infill property. Are there any discussions of the motion? Seeing none, Ms. Cobb, would you please call for a vote?
Shantae Hall, Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Melissa Venable,
Yes.
Fred Walker.
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0.
Congratulations, ma'am. That concludes our Board of Zoning Appeals hearing this afternoon.